Hello, this is Robert Redford, and I want to thank you for joining me for this third installment of the Uranium One series that I'm doing here, calling it Uranium One, Watergate, Modern Age. Now, I want to start this third installment with mention of the horrible status of our news media, and the entire reason I have to do this in the first place. We have 6 major companies that handle all of our entertainment and our news media. And put that graphic up. Another thing, our institutional media, New York Times, Washington Post, our print newspapers can't survive on advertising with circulation this low, and they rely on illegal offshore click farms to pump up their ad numbers. And cable news media is not required to stick to anything other than editorial opinion. The election of 2016 really galvanized the chasm between the left and the right, at the same time as nearly destroying both the GOP and DNC establishment. Social media became an ideological battlefield. I want to take a moment to talk about the advantage a citizen journalist has over the mainstream media. We don't have any time constraints. No editor told me what not to say. That was up to me. I don't have to worry about concerns from advertisers or corporate board interests. I can refer to myself in the first person. I don't have a TV. From 2003 to 2009, I paid for cable TV, grew up with cable TV. I don't have an internet connection at my house, other than my cell. And I'm a computer guy. I was into building computers and Linux and other open source projects. I was in IRC channels, chat rooms, almost constantly from 2004 to 2010, when I realized our own deep state alphabet agencies were engaged in internal struggles, and online recruiting code-breaking games were a thing. I saw people like Aaron Swartz and Barrett Brown or getting in trouble with the law, and I got out of my IRC rooms. All that cloak and dagger stuff wasn't for me. QAnon, by asking questions, lends credibility to the theory that the Trump administration is interested in shutting down and is acting on the deep state smuggling in the blackmail, or as people on the internet call it these days, rat lines and brownstoning. Smuggling and blackmail. The Clinton Foundation, and maybe none of us would have been able to comprehend or understand the Uranium One story a year ago or 2 years ago, because a lot of things have come out into the open that some of us knew, but most people didn't know. Things about the Clinton Foundation being an outright fraud, a Hollywood and the music entertainment meat grinder, child trafficking, international charity fraud surrounding disasters. So it's been about 15 days. Here it is, the beginning of December. It's been about 15 days since the flurry of articles about Uranium One in the middle of November here in 2017. And then it went away again. So there was the Politico article is good from November 14th, 2017. That week saw articles from many mainstream sources seriously critical of the Uranium One deal. Washington Post had one, The Hill, Weekly Standard, Christian Science Monitor. These news articles that appeared for the first time, we learned some new details about Oregon Energy LLC, the CFIUS case 1040, the fact that it's passed by 9 cabinet members, and we also learned where we could find information about how that board is set up and the decision they have to make. We could find that information at Federal Register Volume 73, number 226, November 21st, 2008, and that's pages 70702 to 70728. And I Googled it, brought up a PDF, I found it, and I could read it. It's all in legalese. It's hard to understand. I found out doing some digging, The Treasury, the person sitting on the board from the Treasury, her name is Marisa Lago, like Marisalago. That's a coincidence. Really strange. And the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, had her Associate Secretary Fernandez sitting on this board. What made it disappear was a Snopes article, and then Shepard Smith reiterating and going over reading the points within that Snopes article, which Snopes has now been designated the fact checkers, right? Well, let me tell you what they do is they take a version of what they would consider a conspiracy or a false story, a version that's early, a version that came out pretty early, a version that might have some inconsistencies or some incorrect information, and then they go say this whole thing is false. And then people like Hillary Clinton can talk to Mother Jones in an interview and say it's been debunked. It's been debunked many times. Well, all she's referring to, apparently, because I can't find any other, is the Snopes article. And here's the nitpick of the Snopes article and Shepard Smith. I looked at both. You can look at them. Shepard Smith has some good graphics, but what they're nitpicking on is the percentage of uranium, which we say 20% of America's uranium, and that's what Trump has said. It might really be 10% that comes from Oregon Energy, LLC. Well, I know there's another company in Wyoming as well, and I don't know where the 20% number came from. I'm not the source of the 20%. I don't really push the 20% number. That's not part of my story. It's irrelevant what the percentage of America's uranium might be. So far, they hadn't said it didn't happen. So then the other detail they have is the amount of money that Juster gave the Clinton Foundation. And we haven't talked about Frank Juster in this one yet, but the amount of money that Frank Juster gave is disputed apparently by Snopes and Shepard Smith. Who cares? It's like $4 million isn't enough for this. I know he gave more, but that's what he's claiming he gave, the $4 million. So they don't even dispute that he gave money and lied about it. Whether Hillary Clinton was the sole person that made the decision. So like when Trump says Hillary Clinton gave the Russians this uranium, they're saying no, but here's what Snopes and Shepard Smith is wanting you to buy, wanting you to believe, is that the Obama cabinet didn't have people sitting on it that would be appointed to this board that would stand up and say, no, I don't want this deal to go through, and this is why. That's all it would take, is that there's no one on the board that would stand up and do that. We know that's the situation. They'd have to go against the wishes of the President Obama, and they'd have to go against the wishes of the Secretary of State and probably the Treasurer, the Secretary of the Treasury. So there's a couple of clips here I have from Trump. I want to talk about Uranium One is the big one, the scandal that could possibly bring down the Clintons.
I can't hear you. I can't what? Say it again.
Uranium One is the big one, the scandal that could possibly bring down the Clintons. The Uranium One deal is a plan that spans a decade or more. As I said in my first video of this series, the first stage was covered by the New York Times in 2008 and involved Frank Juster and Bill Clinton getting caught in lies about their meetings. I first heard of Frank Juster on Vote last year, after a certain Washington, D.C. mystery forum was censored and shut down from Reddit within a matter of hours. The thread was reopened on Vote. Reading through those details, I found out that Juster was a major Clinton Foundation donor. I found out he ran children's charities and foundations in other countries, and that he's involved in Hollywood film production with his company Lionsgate. That he was involved in the Haiti relief with the Clinton Foundation, and even has his own Clinton-Justra joint organization with Clinton. I also found out that he was part of the Uranium One deal. The first stage, where they created a Canadian energy trading company called Eurasia, that the New York Times calls a shell company. Justra flew Bill Clinton to Kazakhstan and met with the president and the head of the national uranium mining company, Kazatomprom. And it took a few months, but he got the permission for his new company to mine uranium in Kazakhstan. Meanwhile, he went public with the company on the Canadian Stock Exchange, and the investment money came rolling in. He gave multi-million-dollar donations to the Clinton Foundation and threw Bill Clinton Hollywood parties that cost and raised millions. The second stage, and this is the hard part to research. A number of small uranium mining research companies, prospecting companies, lobbied and possibly got permission to operate on BLM land with hopes of later negotiating mining rights with the government. A lot of this uranium has been known about for years, but is sparse. America actually imports the uranium, most of the uranium that we use. It was decided to leave the uranium in the U.S. largely unmined in earlier decades until the use of uranium was more efficient and safety concerns were more adequately addressed by later generations. Meanwhile, Eurasia, who mines Kazakhstan uranium, gets rolled into other companies and eventually is purchased by Uranium One, a Canadian company with a large range of international investors. And some of my sources say it's a South African. That's what Shep Smith said. Uranium One is the big one, the scandal that could possibly bring down the Clintons. It might still be highly predicated upon the emails based on some of the cryptic internet talk I've been seeing. Shout out to H.A. Goodman because he has noted since early summer of 2016 on Hillary's case that SAP, or Special Access Program security, was violated, and anyone else that does this is court-martialed or fired and stripped of their clearance with possible criminal charges. So are indictments imminent? I hope so. If anyone else has the SAP classified and top secret information being emailed to their aide for printing. Special Access Program is a program where usually you need a card reader attached to the computer, and software won't authenticate without your authorized card inserted. The information on the system is not in any way supposed to be duplicated or transmitted out of the system. And the fact that you have Special Access Program means you're able to use this system in the field. This is your way to look at classified information away from your office. So, on the issue of Podesta's email, I would point everyone to the email that indicates intent to destroy email evidence. I call it the not to sound like Lanny email. WikiLeaks Podesta email number 41841 contains the text. That's the reply. John Podesta writes, not to sound like Lanny, talking about Lanny Davis, but we're going to have to dump all those emails, so better to do so sooner than later. And then Cheryl Mills replies back with, we think we got your new nickname, John. Some of the small prospecting and research companies operating in the United States and Wyoming and Oregon are purchased by Uranium One, and at this point, special filings with the U.S. government Treasury Department are necessary to transfer uranium to a foreign entity. So this is the case of Oregon Energy LLC, CFIUS case, CFIUS case 1040. Bill Clinton buddies up with Putin. At this point, in 2010, he gave paid speeches in Moscow for more money than he can garner now. Uranium One was purchased by Rosatom, the Russian uranium company. Bill and Hillary personally benefited because their foundation has been shown to be used as a personal slush fund. Nazarbayev, Kazakhstan benefited by getting Kazakhstan unduly recognized on human rights councils. Frank Justra and all his mining friends, investors, benefited by making money mining minerals. Putin ultimately benefits because Rosatom has a larger stake in the world uranium market. And uranium is used in medicine for cancer treatment, radiation. It's used in power generation, with nuclear reactors. It's used by navies for nuclear reactors, submarines, and aircraft carriers. It's also used for bombs. A very small amount, I would say, is used for bombs these days, but it's usually plutonium. I want to talk a little bit about my own name that I've chosen. I put up here for YouTube, Robert Redford. So last summer, during the election, when I saw that we were in the midst of 20 Watergates, and I was reading the WikiLeaks, I was telling my family about WikiLeaks, and Guccifer 2.0, the FBI file dumps, and how they were all being mixed up and confused in the news media, but are actually uncovering 5 or 6 Watergates that are all interrelated. And this is when I changed my YouTube profile to the name Robert Redford. It was just so I could comment under the name at first. 3 reasons. Sundance. Redford, in effect, moved away and distanced himself from Hollywood. After his late 1970s heyday, he started the Sundance Independent Film Festival in an attempt to wrestle away some of the creative control in cinema from the major Hollywood studios and distribution. The movie that he's in, called All the President's Men, made in 1976. It's a movie about Watergate and the Washington Post reporters that broke the story. There's another movie from the same era called 3 Days of the Condor. It's a spy thriller, 1975, also starring Max von Sydow and Faye Dunaway. Redford's character in the movie, he's a CIA analyst and a reader. He discovers a novel with a strange assortment of translations. It was being translated in Arabic and Urdu, but not German and French. So he submits a report, and a week later, everyone in his office is killed while he's out picking up lunch. He knows he's supposed to be part of the hit. So he does the action hero thing and works his way to the top of the conspiracy and learns the novel was a secret CIA plan and a plot to take over oil fields in the Middle East. So at the end of the movie, he decides to become a whistleblower and go public. And he tells the New York Times the entire story. The movie ends with the CIA bureau chief, played by Cliff Robertson. And Cliff, that's the same actor that played Uncle Ben from the Spider-Man movie. With great power comes great responsibility. So the CIA bureau chief is telling him that CIA has people at the New York Times, and he's asking, do you think they really print it? Are they really going to print your story? So there's another movie Robert Redford's in that's even more relevant, called Sneakers, about deep state hacking and espionage. And in addition to Robert Redford, it has Sidney Poitier and Ben Kingsley, James Earl Jones, River Phoenix, Dan Aykroyd. This is 1993. In this movie, Ben Kingsley talks about the future, the reality we live in now, where information is the currency of the future. And just by changing the information that's out there, I can make people millions, and I can make people lose millions, billions. And that's what Ben Kingsley's character says to Robert Redford's character in the movie. And then there's also Spy Games with Brad Pitt. There's a lot of reasons why I chose Robert Redford for the name. It was originally just a comment. I didn't think I'd be making Uranium One, Watergate, modern age videos. Listen, I voted for Obama twice. I was involved with the Occupy movement. A year ago, you couldn't have told me that I would be on this side of things. But I've slowly grown into believing that he's doing the right thing in this situation. I want to let you know, also on the side, I have Space Art Show, and that's an interactive Bob Ross style painting show from outer space. And check it out at Space Art Show on Twitter, across all platforms. Subscribe and like. Follow on Twitter. My name at Adjastra.
Here, men working behind shielded walls used remote-controlled manipulators to remove the components for careful checking and analysis. Each test firing added information that helped scientists evaluate the reactor's performance and enabled them to make adjustments and corrections before the next reactor was assembled.
You know where we are. Just look around. They've got it. That's where they ship from. They've got all of it.
What? What did you do?
I told them a story. You play games, I told them a story.
Oh, you poor dumb son of a bitch. You've done more damage than you know.
The better. But you know what? I want to do the right thing for the American people. And to be honest, secondarily, I want to do the right thing for the world. If Russia and the United States actually got together and got along, and don't forget, we're a very powerful nuclear country, and so are they. There's no upside. We're a very powerful nuclear country, and so are they. I've been briefed, and I can tell you one thing about a briefing, but I tell you one thing. She tried to make a deal. She had the reset. She gave all that valuable uranium away. She did other things. You know, they say I'm close to Russia. Hillary Clinton gave away 20% of the uranium in the United States. She's close to Russia. You know what I gave to Russia? You know what I gave? Nothing.
Can we conclude there'll be no response to these particular provocations?
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you anything about what response I do. I don't talk about military response. I don't say I'm going into Mosul in 4 months. We are going to attack Mosul in 4 months. Then 3 months later, we are going to attack Mosul in 1 month. Next week, we are going to attack Mosul.
Mr. President!
Well, I think the uranium sale to Russia and the way it was done, so underhanded, with tremendous amounts of money being passed, I actually think that's Watergate modern age.